For weeks, it looked like Rodri's next destination was almost obvious. Real Madrid wanted him. Rodri had just come off a World Cup where he won the Golden Ball. And Madrid were looking for a world-class midfielder who could become the heart of their new team. Everything seemed to be moving in one direction. But then Barcelona entered the race. And suddenly, a transfer that looked like Real Madrid's to lose has turned into one of the most fascinating battles of the summer. Because Barcelona aren't simply interested in Rodri. They are reportedly preparing another offer from Manchester City after their opening bid was rejected. And if Barca actually pull this off, they won't just sign one of the best midfielders in the world. They could take Real Madrid's biggest midfield target and put him in a Barcelona shirt. So how did this happen? And more importantly, where does Rodri actually want to play? To understand why this transfer is so important, you have to go back to the beginning. Real Madrid had been looking at Rodri for months. The reason was simple. Madrid needed control. After years of relying on legendary midfielders, the club wanted another player capable of controlling the tempo of the biggest matches. And Rodri is almost the perfect profile. He's technically excellent. He's physically powerful. He understands positioning better than almost anyone in his position. And perhaps most importantly, he has already proved that he can perform when the pressure is enormous. He isn't simply another talented midfielder. He's a player who can become the system. That's why Madrid's interest became so serious after the World Cup. Rodri had just helped Spain win the tournament and was named its best player. Suddenly, the idea of Rodri returning to Spain wasn't just a transfer rumor. It looked like something that could genuinely happen. And Madrid began working on the possibility of bringing him to the Bernabeu. But there was one massive problem. Manchester City. Rodri's situation at Manchester City is what makes this entire story so complicated. His current contract runs until June 2027. That means City aren't under immediate pressure to sell him. But they are approaching a dangerous point. If Rodri doesn't agree to a new contract, the club eventually risks entering the final year of his deal with far less control over his future. City have reportedly wanted Rodri to extend his stay, but no new agreement has been reached. And that creates a massive decision for Manchester City. Do they convince Rodri to stay? Do they sell him now for a huge fee? Or do they keep him and risk the situation becoming even more complicated? And while City were trying to figure that out, Barcelona saw an opportunity. This is where everything changed. Barcelona began pushing for Rodri. And according to recent reports, the club has stepped up its pursuit and is preparing a fresh bid for Manchester City. Barcelona's first offer was rejected. Reports put that opening bid at around £38.5 million. But the rejection didn't end the story. Barcelona are still pushing. And that tells you something important. They don't see Rodri as a backup option. They see him as a player worth fighting for. And there is a very good reason. Barcelona have their own midfield problem. They need experience, they need control, and they need a player capable of operating at the highest level immediately. Rodri checks every box. But there's another reason this move makes sense. One that has nothing to do with money. Spain. Think about the Spanish national team. Rodri has spent years playing alongside many of the players who could potentially become his Barcelona teammates. He understands the football culture. He knows the language. He knows the league. And he already has chemistry with several Spanish stars. That makes Barcelona a very natural destination. But there is still one enormous obstacle. Manchester City don't have to sell. And Barcelona don't have unlimited money. So the question becomes, how far are Barcelona willing to go? Barcelona already discovered the answer to one question. Manchester City are not going to simply give Rodri away. Their opening offer was rejected. And that's understandable. You're talking about a Ballon d'Or winner, a World Cup Golden Ball winner, and one of the most important midfielders of his generation. City know exactly what they have. And they also know that Barcelona aren't the only club interested. Real Madrid have been watching the situation. Which means City have something incredibly valuable. Competition. If Madrid want Rodri, and Barcelona want Rodri, City can potentially force both clubs to pay more. But there's a problem. Rodri's contract situation means City can't control this forever. And that is why this summer matters so much. Now imagine you're Real Madrid. You have spent months monitoring Rodri. You've built your midfield plans around the possibility of signing him. And suddenly Barcelona arrive. Not only do they want your target, they're now trying to negotiate directly with his current club. This isn't just another transfer. It's Barcelona versus Real Madrid, and whoever wins gets one of the most important midfielders in world football. For Madrid, losing Rodri to Barcelona would be especially painful, because they wouldn't simply miss out on a player. They could potentially watch their biggest rival strengthen its midfield with the exact type of player Madrid wanted themselves. And that is what makes this story so fascinating. Because Barcelona may not need to beat Real Madrid financially. They may only need to convince Rodri. This is the question that could decide everything. There have been different reports about Rodri's preferences throughout this saga. Earlier in the summer, his future was heavily linked with Real Madrid. Rodri himself had said that his future would be addressed after the World Cup. And now Barcelona have entered the picture. So we need to separate one thing from another. There is a huge difference between Barcelona want Rodri and Rodri has chosen Barcelona. Those are not the same thing. Right now, the transfer is not done. Barcelona are pushing. City have rejected their opening offer. Madrid remain part of the story. And Rodri's future is still unresolved. That uncertainty is exactly what makes this transfer so dangerous for everyone involved. Now imagine Rodri actually joins Barcelona. What happens? Barcelona suddenly get a midfielder who can control games against Europe's strongest teams. He can sit in front of the defense. He can dictate possession. He can slow the game down. He can accelerate it. And he brings something Barcelona desperately need at the highest level. Experience. But there's an even bigger consequence. Barcelona would be taking a player who was being discussed as a potential Real Madrid signing. That changes the psychological battle between the two clubs. Because Madrid would have to watch Barcelona take one of their biggest targets. And Barcelona would be able to say something very simple: we got Rodri. And this is why I wouldn't call the transfer a done deal. Manchester City still have the most important piece. The player belongs to them. Barcelona have to make an offer that City are willing to accept. And City have every reason to demand a serious fee. The club also has to decide whether Rodri is part of its long-term future. If they can convince him to sign a new contract, the entire story changes. But if Rodri refuses to extend, then City have a much more difficult decision. Sell now while they can still command a major fee, or keep him and deal with the final year of his contract later. Either option carries risk. That's why Rodri's situation could become one of the defining transfer stories of the summer. Real Madrid want him. Barcelona want him. Manchester City don't want to lose him cheaply. And Rodri's decision could determine which direction this entire saga takes. If Barcelona can convince Rodri and Manchester City with their next offer, they could pull off one of the biggest transfer hijacks of the summer. But if Madrid return with a serious proposal, the race could swing again. And if City convince Rodri to renew, both Spanish giants could be left waiting. So right now, there is only one thing we can say with confidence. Rodri's future is still wide open. But Barcelona have made one thing very clear. They are no longer watching the Rodri transfer from the sidelines. They're coming for him. And if they actually get their man, Real Madrid won't just have lost a transfer target. They'll have lost him to Barcelona. And that could make this one of the biggest transfer battles of the entire summer. So now the question isn't simply, will Rodri leave Manchester City? Will he end up at Real Madrid or Barcelona? And now I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments below, where do you think Rodri should go? Real Madrid or Barcelona? And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more football transfer stories. See you in the next one.